Hey everybody, this is herculespetix, founder, curator, docent, and gift shop employee of the herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies. Today we're going to be looking at Sword of Sorcery, number 1 through 5, published by DC Comics in 1973. And these were adaptations of Fritz Lieber's Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories. I hope I'm pronouncing Fafhrd correctly, but I don't know if you've ever read Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. They're like basically like sword and sorcery, barbarian type comics, but they're like have a sense of humor. The characters are way more human. Like Conan and Thongor, all those like barbarians that came out after Conan's success. They're kind of humorless jerks. I mean, I wouldn't want to hang out with Conan. He'd probably just grunt a lot and whatever. But these guys are just like really clever, witty, and they're really good friends. And so it has this, it basically takes the template of sword and sorcery fiction, but has this nice, I don't know, just like almost like a fun sitcom or something. Like these characters are very likable, in other words. I read them as a kid, the novellas and the novels and the short stories. And it's really fun stuff. I mean, it's great sword and sorcery, but also the characters are kind of funny and identifiable. Let's get to number 1, shall we? What a way to start off this beautiful Mike Kaluta cover. This is gorgeous stuff. My parents were friends with this other couple, and it turns out this guy, he was like, 20 years older than me. He was a comic collector at one point. He sold most of them, but he kept the stuff that was science fiction related because he really got into science fiction paperbacks and stuff. And I remember he had this. So like from one of my earliest, 10 years old on, every time I'd visit him, I'd look through his comics, see this cover. This is imprinted on my brain. I didn't own it myself. Neither did my brother. So as an adult, I slowly bought these. I found them really cheap. Nobody really cares about this comic. But man, this cover is burned into my brain. Beautiful Mike Kaluta stuff. Really nice. Okay. So these are adapted from Fritz Lieber stories. This one in particular is adapted from The Price of Paying Ease. And they're adapted by Denny O'Neil, writer, Howard Chaykin pencils, and the Krusty Bunkers inks. We've talked about the Krusty Bunkers before in our Wolf the Barbarian episode. That was Neil Adams and his continuity associates. Basically, if some artist was running behind, the dreaded deadline doom, you could call up Neil Adams at Krusty Bunkers, and they would pull an all-nighter because continuity associates had like all these like artists just hanging out. They had studios there. They'd kibitz. They'd socialize. And every now and then, they'd be like, we need this story inked by tomorrow. And they'd pull an all-nighter. Various artists would maybe just ink one panel, maybe a page, randomly. And they'd get the thing done. The thing is they were usually the best-looking comics in the 70s. Because even though there was various artists, Neil Adams would be quality control and make sure that everything was up to his standards, which were the best standards in comics, basically. So a lot of the artists who worked for him kind of drew like him. And it's just very nice, slick, appealing stuff. I've seen Howard Chaykin back then. This is like one of Howard Chaykin's first comics. And without the Krusty Bunkers, he's a little rough, as you can imagine. He was a young guy. He was learning. But this looks great with the nice sheen of the Krusty Bunkers over Howard Chaykin. Always had a good sense for layouts and design, but wasn't the best, artist out there. So we see Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser here doing what they do best, or at least what they love best, drinking and hanging out with the pretty ladies. That's all they want to do. I mean, they love a good scrap, and they're very good at it. But if they had their way, I think this is what the books would be about. Just them hanging out in bars. But luckily, fate intervenes, and there's usually some exciting, thrilling, action-packed story they get drawn into. So they're hanging out at this tavern. There's some guys over here. Give them the stink eye. And they basically attack Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. There's like, what is it, 6 of them? And Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are kicking their asses. These guys are very formidable. I guess it's a reward on their heads, and that's why these guys are attacking them. Because these guys are always getting involved with shenanigans. They're a bunch of scofflaws. Look at that. Obvious Neil Adams right there. That is so Neil Adams. That woman's face, too. I mean, it could be Dick Giordano, of course. The Green Comic Database says that kind of gives the bulk of the credit of the Krusty Bunkers for this issue to Neil Adams, Alan Weiss, and Rick Bryant. I can definitely see some Alan Weiss panels in here. Rick Bryant, not so much. Later on, I do. But also, apparently, others who may have assisted include Dick Giordano, Walt Simonson, Rich Buckler, Vicente Alcazar, Sal Amendola, Alan Cooper, Brigg, and Ralph Reese. So if you guys are better at spotting artists than I am, maybe you'll see some of their penmanship in this comic. So basically the sheriff of this town comes, and Fafhrd and Grey Mouser hightail it out of there. They're always running from the law. They're always up to no good. One might say they're no good nicks, but they're really good guys. And, you know, the whole time the dialogue is pretty fun. They're just constantly joking with each other, even while they're fighting. So I guess they heard word on the street that there's this palace owned by this rich guy, and apparently he's away for the month at his country mansion. And he's taking all his fighting men with him. So they're like, oh, this will be easy pickings. Some more blatant Neil Adams inking. Fafhrd breaks the gate, and they go inside the palace. And they're just totally chilling. They're loving it. They're drinking the guy's wine and eating his food in the lap of luxury. But then the guy shows up, Duke Danius. He's returned early. He orders his archers to kill them. But Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are too formidable for that. They escape the palace, and as soon as they do, even the archer's about to shoot him, try to shoot him again, and these unicorns just pop up. I really like this design work here. Very kind of groovy, cool design motif in this panel. So they get on the unicorns. Once again, sorry to keep pointing this out. That is so Neil Adams. And the unicorns are basically just running where they want to and taking them along for the ride. So they end up in this cave, and they hear a voice say, "Approach, mortals. I am Shilba of the Eyeless Face, and I am Hingauble of the Seven Eyes. We have a task for you." So these guys are almost like demigods. I don't know what they are, but you don't want to mess with them. So Hingable tells them there's a castle of the destroyer Death. In Death's chamber is a throne, and upon the throne is a mask. I charge you to bring it with me. And they start arguing. They're like, no, that mask is mine by right. So, I mean, they're talking about literally Death. The personification of Death owns this castle. So each of them kind of picks a champion. They're basically like, one of them says, Fafhrd, bring me the mask. If you don't, you're dead. And the other one says, Grey Mouser, you're my champion. Bring me the mask, or you're dead. And they get on their unicorns, and they head out to the Castle of Death, which is in the Shadowland. That Duke guy, Duke Danius, meanwhile, he's obtaining this magical axe, which this witch has basically sold him. She put a spell on it. I was going to resist saying Neil Adams again, but that's really Neil Adams. And we kind of realize the character of Duke Danius as soon as he gets the axe. He orders his archers to kill the witch. He's just a right bastard, this guy. So Danius, he wants to steal that mask from death. So it looks like our two heroes have competition. So they're riding out to the castle. And they see the throne with the mask over it. Just really good looking art here. I'm just loving this. But this was kind of out of character, I got to say, for these two. Because I read all the books. But they start fighting because basically, you know, they're like, well, if I don't bring back the mask, I'm going to be dead. And also, if I do bring back the mask, I'll get all this treasure. So they start fighting amongst themselves. The reason why it's out of character is these guys have faced insurmountable odds before. But they're good friends, and they've always figured, yeah, we might die, but, you know, we'll face this together. So I don't get the scene. But they are fighting. Of course, they're joking the whole time. Even though they're fighting each other who are best friends, they're still jesting and ribbing each other. But then Danius shows up. And they're like, okay, enough of this. Let's fight this guy together. So they're getting their asses kicked by this magic axe. It's really pretty magical. So Danius defeats Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser. And he goes to get the mask. Which even the witch told him, supposedly this axe can even kill Death. Death himself. Or herself. So he swings his axe at Death and it does nothing. And he's just like, I should have known, the witch lied. And Death totally kills him. Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser wake up and they see Death killing Danius and they hightail it out of there. But Grey Mouser is such a good thief, he grabbed the mask, which has been cut in twain. And he says, let's just give this mask to those two guys. They can split it up now that it's halved. Maybe they'll be satisfied. Which they should have done that earlier. Just be like, whatever we have to do. Let's not fight amongst ourselves. We're best friends. So who knows what'll happen. They live. I'll tell you that much. Because there's other issues of this. We have a little editorial from Denny O'Neil. And that's it for the first issue. Sword of Sorcery number 2. We have, once again, a Howard Chaykin cover of this. I'm sorry, not once again, but this is the first cover by Chaykin. This time, ink by Bernie Wrightson. And surprisingly, it doesn't look that great. I think Wrightson would do some nice polish on this, but it doesn't look that great. Weird choice of purple, though, for the main color. You don't see that often in comics. So now we have another story, Revenge of the Skull of Jewels, from Fritz Lieber's story, Thieves' House. They changed the title. Denny O'Neil, writer, and Howard Chaykin, artist. But, uncredited, this one is also kind of a crusty bunker's job. And it's different people. But it's not officially Krusty Bunkers. So according to this one, a lot of this is just Neil Adams. Like a lot of panels. But there's other people on here. Other than the people I mentioned in the first issue, Joe Rubenstein is in here. And Rich Buckler. I don't know if I mentioned that in the first one. So we see Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, and they've teamed up with this guy, Fafhrd. And they're in the tomb of Vatashal. And they're fighting these, like, demon monsters. Basically, they're there to rob it. And we find out the reason they teamed up with Fafhrd is because he has all this knowledge, arcane knowledge, and they're there to steal this. The skull of Omphal. Rubies for eyes, teeth of pure diamond, and the hands. Pearl fingernails. It would be enough to ransom a king. So they're done with the job. They're outside. And Fafhrd offers them a swig of wine. They're like, let's toast for a successful venture. And he drugged the wine. As soon as our heroes drink it, they fall over. They collapse. They wake up later, and they decide to go to the thieves' house. Fafhrd is a member of the thieves' guild, I guess, that lives in the thieves' house. And, excuse me, they're going to get comeuppance. As soon as they get in, all these thieves are attacking them, coming out from secret hatches and doors. But our heroes quickly dispatch them. So they find this guy, the leader of the thieves, and he's already dead. Someone strangled him. So these other guys come in, and they hide behind the drapes. Yeah, some of the sites are a little wonky. Look at this guy's face. It's just way too wide. No matter how fat you are, your face is going to look like that. So Fafhrd claims that those skeleton hands killed the leader of the thieves. He saw them fly up to his neck and strangle him. This guy isn't buying it. He's like, you've been plotting with Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, I know it. Which is true. And they notice that Fafhrd's big feet are coming out from the curtain. And of course, a big melee begins. Someone conks Fafhrd on the head. Grey Mouser's being all agile like he is. And is fighting off these thieves. But Fafhrd wakes up. He's pretty dazed. And as he's trying to escape, he runs right into this beam here. I never saw Conan do anything like that. And Grey Mouser loses track of him. So then these three ghosts appear. And they say, we are the ghosts of the ancient thieves of Lankmar. Lankmar is where most of these stories take place. It's an ancient city. They say, you have to bring that skull back to us, or your life will be drawn from you. Kind of a weird panel layout here. It's so complicated, they had to put in these arrows to tell you how to read it. I usually don't like when they do that. Actually, I don't like it here. I kind of see it as bad storytelling. So the thieves come back. They find Fafhrd. And once again, he gets conked out. This time, he's totally unconscious. Meanwhile, Grey Mouser is just entertaining himself. He's like, I lost Fafhrd, so I might as well hang out with a beautiful girl and drink some wine at this tavern. But then he gets a message attached to a knife thrown through the window. And it says the same thing. But it's signed Fafhrd. It says, if you do not bring the skull, we will kill Fafhrd. I'm sorry, it's not signed Fafhrd. They threaten to kill Fafhrd if he doesn't bring the skull. So he's like, okay, I got a job. I really hate this when colors do this. Just do one color. Just kind of washes out the whole thing. So, what appears to be an old woman knocks on the door of this, of Ivlis. And she's this woman, very stylishly adorned. This is also a sign of Howard Chaykin. He drew pretty interesting fashion. And then we realize this old woman is actually Grey Mouser. And she tries to attack him, but he hog-ties her. He does it in a very charming way, though. So it turns out she's the one who took the skull in the hands from Thieves' House. Or at least that's what Mouser thinks. So these guys are torturing Fafhrd. And Fissif is joining in. But then the skull appears from this curtain and it's talking. I have come to seek revenge. But of course, we realize it's the Grey Mouser trying to pull a fast one. Fafhrd breaks his bonds, and then him and the Grey Mouser proceed to kick some more ass, fighting all these thieves. And then this guy who's taken over as the leader of the thieves, he like stabs the skull because Fissif says, the skull, I think it's alive. And he says, I'll show you, prove you wrong, you idiot. And look at this. It totally consumes him and kills him. The hands strangle him. I really like the design of this panel, though. This magical eldritch energy surrounding him. And the skull and hands disappear. So once again, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are left penniless. But they're alive, so they're grateful. And of course, Fafhrd once again says, come, we've wine to drink and much forgetting to do. It's weird after reading these comics that I think these guys are basically alcoholics. So much of their life revolves around hanging out in taverns and getting drunk every single day. And is a constant theme. Almost every page, when they're not on some great adventure, they're drinking. I'm sorry, guys. I grabbed the wrong copy. Here's number 3. And here we got a cover by, this is Howard Chaykin once again, inked by Alan Weiss. Once again, not that spectacular. Not the best design cover ever. So this one's called Betrayal. And this issue, they forgot to put the credits on. And they just kind of fucked up. This is an interesting issue because Howard Chaykin, we find out from the Grand Comic Database, a few pages were actually penciled by Ron Sutton, the Canadian artist who did a lot of stuff for like various Canadian publishers, kind of ground level, a lot of sci-fi stuff. Pretty good guy, pretty good chops. I've seen some of his stuff in anthologies. So I guess he pencils page 18, 20, 23, 24. Most of them inked by Dan Green, the longtime inker, did a lot of stuff during the 70s, and some of them inked by Walt Simonson. The inks for the other pages, or the Howard Chaykin pages, are by Bernie Wrightson, Alan Weiss, and Ron Sutton. Sometimes inks Howard Chaykin. So it's, once again, just a bunch of diverse hands tackling the art. So Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser they have booked passage on a ship, and this other ship attacks them. These pirates. And we meet this guy. The leader of this pirate ship is Captain Duggam. Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse are taken out for the count. And Captain Duggam grabs this woman who also booked passage on the ship. She's a princess. And they, I think they kill almost everyone else and then scuttle the boat. So Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse jump off the ship and are drifting around the ocean for days on this piece of driftwood. Luckily, another ship picks them up and takes them back to Lankamar. Kind of a weird face there. But obviously Chaykin, because he has those sideburns. Howard Chaykin's like one of those guys who always draws every character as him. So in the 70s, he had sideburns. So a bunch of his characters had sideburns. Or I don't know, let's go mutton chops. So then we meet Overlord Glepcario. And he supposedly is Duggam's boss. He's just a bigwig. So Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse show up. They beat the crap out of all of his guards. And when they confront the guy, he's a total coward. He's just like, I'll give you anything you want, just don't hurt me. And they're like, hey, we're trying to find this princess. You know, where did Captain Duggam take him? And he says, it wasn't my fault. Duggam rebelled against me, stole the warship, and acted on his own. The girlie took his Princess Shada. He demands ransom from her father, the king, a king. So, of course, this guy's in Dutch with the... I'm sorry, not in Dutch. This king is pissed off because everyone knows this guy works with Duggam. So he basically says, guys, I'll help you. Please clear my name. You know, get this Duggam guy, return the princess. Because this king is really powerful, and he's gunning for me. So he takes him down to this little office, and it's his magician. And this guy's kind of funny. He's kind of like an eccentric character. He's built an airship. Really like this design. It almost looks like an inflatable pillow. And he also introduces them to this winged woman. I believe her name is Lessa. And she's like, she's going to go with you. She's kind of going to be your guide. Lissa, I'm sorry. So they're looking for Duggam. And they get to this island, kind of like Duggam's hideout. And they attack them with a fiery catapult. Totally downs the ship. And the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse crash. Then we see these guys. One of the guys is sitting on the catapult. I love this. Grey Mouse just sneaks up behind him and cuts the rope. So the guy goes flying into the air. So they survive the crash, obviously. And, of course, they're still looking for Duggam. And more importantly, they're looking for the princess. So they get to this, like, kind of throne room. And the princess is sitting on Duggam's lap. So they fight all these guys, all of his pirates. And the magician gave them this deck of cards. And he said, if you're ever in trouble, this is better than having your own regiment. All you got to do is drop some water from a cloud on them. So Lissa flies up into the sky, into like the stratosphere where the cloud cover is, gets some condensation, some water, and she pours it on the cards, which is a good thing because they've already got Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse hogtied to these posts. They're defeated. I'm pretty sure I see Alan Weiss in here. This is so groovy. I'm pretty sure this is that Ron Sutton page. I can picture Howard Chaykin drawing this. Let me double check. Yeah, this is one of those Ron Sutton pages. This looks cool, though. So basically the cards come to life, and they totally kill all the pirates. Hey, there's some really wonky art in here. Some weird faces. So Great Mouser kills Duggam. And then, he basically says, I'm here at your service, madam. I've come to rescue you. And she knocks him over the head and takes the sword. And she's like, what are you talking about? You just killed my husband. I love him. And you killed him. So she's about to kill him. And Lissa gets in the path of her sword and takes the fall for Grey Mouser, and she's dead. And apparently Grey Mouser's become very connected to Lissa. Really sad. Here's another Ron Sutton. Look at that face, very long. I don't think that's Howard Chaykin. This is the one inked by Walt Simonson. And the next page coming up. This half page. And so it's kind of weird for Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser story has a very sad ending. Usually they're always lighthearted, but he goes to bury her. And Fafhrd says, go on, Mouser, I'll wait for as long as it takes. We got a little half page of letters here. Okay, let's move on to number 4. Another Howard Chaykin cover, this time inked by Walt Simonson. This is pretty nice. A lot better than the last 2 covers. So this one is credited to Chaykin Incorporated, the art. Once again, Denny O'Neil adapting Fritz Lieber. So Chaykin Incorporated was kind of the Krusty Bunkers type thing. He ran into a deadline, you could tell. And he had to get help. So apparently a lot of these are penciled by Walter Simonson, but also Sal Amendola helped. He was part of Continuity Associates. So they're back in Lankmar, and they're basically penniless. They're freezing. They're out in the alley, and these guys attack them. Oh, this I forgot to mention, this is called The Cloud of Hate. And, of course, they're Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, so they kick these guys' asses. I like this guy here. He looks like some cyberpunk villain. He's got this mohawk, and his eye patch looks like some weird, I don't know, optic enhancer. Like, this could be from a cyberpunk thing. But he's not. He just has a weird eye patch. So then all of a sudden this fog shows up. And it curls around the hilt of the dagger buried in one of these guys' bodies. And it pulls the dagger out and floats away. Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser are like, we got to follow this. What the hell's going on? And it kind of ponders over this fire. This woman is hanging out with a bunch of merchants on the road. She's cooking a meal, and the fog stops and kills her, lifts her up into the air, and wrings the life out of her. So now Mouser and Fafhrd are just like, we got to follow this fucker. This is not cool. And as it floats away, we see the sword still in there. It goes in, they kind of following the trail, and there's this goofy guard. He's kind of a goofball. I don't know if he's drunk or something. They punch him. They knock him out. Okay, I just want to guess. That looks Sal Amendola-y to me. Both of those. So they go in this cavern. So I got to say, even though it doesn't say, I think this is Rick Bryant. This looks so Rick Bryant to me. Sorry, Rick Bryant-y. Not that that's a word. But, I'm obviously wrong. At least according to the Grand Comics database. He helped inking on a bunch of these issues. But apparently not this one. So let me double check. Yeah. But this is a pretty cool phantasmagorical image. They go inside this place, and it's almost like there's this cult of the Cloud of Hate. And there's this, almost high priest beseeching the cloud of hate to sow seeds of violence and pain, bring war, destroy kindness and brotherhood. This is our prayer. Seems kind of a weird cult. So all the followers attack our heroes. And the cloud gets Grey Mouser. And basically is, it's got a sword in it. It's going to kill him. But it turns out that the cloud is actually susceptible to cold, hard steel. And Fafhrd frees him with a sword blow. But then all these other weapons appear in the cloud. It's almost like fighting an octopus with tentacles. There's all these swords coming out of nowhere. But the Cloud of Hate does have this like central eye. You can see it better on the cover. And they realize they've got to stab that eye. That'll probably stop it. And so Mouser, it's his job because he's very agile. And he stabs the eye and the whole thing collapses. And once again, they didn't get any gold or silver. But Fafhrd's all like, let's seek a refuge where the wine and the girls are clean and sharp, he says. They should go to an AA meeting. That's where they should go. Swordsman scrolls the letter page once again, and this is a treat. Young Fafhrd, the Barbarian. And it's a tale of young Fafhrd when he was a teenager. Story by Denny O'Neil. Total art, pencils and inks by Walter Simonson. This is a beaut. We have a little splash page here, almost like a cover illustrating the story. But it starts off in the North Country. That's where Fafhrd's from. He's hanging out with his girlfriend, walking around, and this old man appears. And he says, beware the dragon, the snow serpent. He also tells him a little prophecy. He says, where fails a blade, however true, that work an ordinary song may do. Like those eyes there. So they're just like, crazy old man, whatever. Fafhrd pulls out his lute and starts singing songs to his girlfriend. And then he doesn't even realize, but the snow serpent grabs his girlfriend and is going to attack Fafhrd. This is an excellent panel. That is some really nice stuff. I love how the angle is like almost worm's eye view looking up. Really great art. God, Walt Simon's just a kid. It's like one of the first things he ever drew in mainstream comics. So Fafhrd tries to fight him. His skin is impervious to his sword. He figures he'll attack the mouth, and the dragon bites down at his sword and crunches it until it bits. So he's just like, fuck. I'm screwed. The dragon knocks him down with his tail and flies off with his girlfriend. Basically, he's going to take her back to the cave and eat her. So Fafhrd is just like, I failed, I'm helpless. There's only one thing I could do, perform the funeral ritual for Ainsa. It begins with a song of mourning. So, convinced that she's a goner, he starts singing this song. And meanwhile, back in the cave, the serpent's about to eat his girlfriend. And I guess somehow the vibrations of his singing dislodge this giant icicle, which has been centuries of forming. And it lands right in the eye of the dragon and kills him. And a little while later, they walk off. And we see the ghostly form of that old guy repeating that little prophecy. A cute little story. But I mean, mainly it's really nice early Walt Simonson art. Now we got number 5, the last issue. Makes me sad. I wish this went on for longer. This is just... like I mentioned earlier, I haven't been reading everything because, copyright shit, but they constantly have this great banter between them. Whenever they're fighting, they're very much like Spider-Man. I'm curious if Fritz Lieber ever admitted to being influenced by Spider-Man. Because whenever these guys get in a fight, that's all they do. They won't shut up. They're just constantly, bantering and being funny guys. This last cover is, this is a Simonson cover. I think it's all by himself. I don't know. Who knows? Actually, I can find out. Yeah, it's Walt Simonson pencils and inks. And really nice looking. The art inside, though, unfortunately, is inked by Al Milgrom. I gotta say, Al Milgrom does a better job than normal. It still looks pretty good, but it's not nearly as good as the Simonson we just saw where he inks himself. This one's called The Sunken Land. And we see Fafhrd and the Grey Mouse, they're out in this little skiff. And Fafhrd is basically attacking this octopus because they need food. And they saw this giant octopus. It's like, oh, this will be our dinner. I'm sorry, guys, I should mention it's a story by Denny O'Neil and Fritz Lieber, as opposed to Denny O'Neil adapting this story. So I wonder if Fritz Lieber actually just said, hey, I want to work in this comics field. I want to co-write a story, an original story for this comic. I could be wrong, but it is definitely distinctive that it doesn't say Denny O'Neil's adapting any previous Fafhrd and Grey Mouse story. So they kill the octopus. And then while Fafhrd's gutting the thing, he finds this like ring with an emerald key as decoration. It looks very arcane and ancient. And Grey Mouser says, you got to get rid of that. I recognize those symbols. That's a relic of Simorgia, the sunken land. So it's kind of like Atlantis. I didn't mention this earlier, but Grey Mouser's pretty smart. He was a scholar as a youth. And I mean, Fafhrd's kind of like the big, strong lug, but he's also pretty clever in his own way. He's not book smart, but... So Fafhrd refuses to get rid of the ring. So just like Grey Mouser warned, the storm rises up really quickly, knocks him off their boat. Knocks Fafhrd off the boat, and Grey Mouser loses track of him. So Fafhrd has no idea where he is. He has no sense of direction. But all of a sudden he sees this other boat show up. And he swims to it. And he's like, hey, help me out. I seek shelter. And one of the oarsmen clonks him in the head. So Fafhrd grabs the oar. I love this action. And he yanks down at it, which catapults the oarsman into the ocean. And then it clonks him on the head. So he gets on board, starts fighting all the guys. The guys on the ship. I think I skipped a page here. And he's basically beating up everyone. But there's this old guy here. He's gesturing to Fafhrd. He actually gives him some wine that's not drugged. That rarely happens in these kind of comics. He tells him that you're aboard the ship of Lavis Lerk, and we're on a quest to raid Simorgia. I guess this guy Lavis thinks that it's not sunken. It's not this lost land. You can actually get to it. Then all of a sudden, the guy falls over, the old guy, and here's Lavis. I guess he was talking too much, and Lavis didn't like it. So he stabs him in the back. So Fafhrd starts roughing him up. And I guess there was a bunch of guys hiding on the ship. And they all attack Fafhrd. There's like 20 guys going after him. But Fafhrd finally falls. Once again, he's conked on the head, man. He's got to have some brain damage by now. So we see here that the boat is on land. And one of Lavis' sailors says, we've reached Simorgia. So while they were battling, the sunken land rose under them. And they're aground on it. On this benighted kingdom, as they call it. So, Fafhrd's tied up, and they all decide to check it out. They find this giant door, and they know that Fafhrd's got this key, so they use it. And it opens up this chamber, unto this chamber, full of treasure, like more treasure than anyone's ever seen. But then Mouser shows up. I guess Mouser saw Fafhrd through the storm and has been following the ship this whole time. Even with Al Milgrom, I really like this art. There's some really... I just love his storytelling, his panelology. Here's a good example. His little panels. So, of course, Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser start kicking some ass. And then, eventually, Grey Mouser's just like, oh, we got to get out of here. Forget these guys. Let's exit quickly. And Lavis and his men are about to chase him. But all of a sudden, these creepy, robed dudes show up. They almost look like guys with no corporeal form. They're just robes, like phantasms. And they totally kill all these guys. I like this sequence of silent panels here. One of the robe guys drowning Lavis. And the sunken land vanishes back into the sea. And Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser take the ship and sail off. Probably the only comic where they don't mention, hey, let's go get drunk now. So this is nice. We have a solo Grey Mouser story. Story by George Effinger. He went on to be a pretty prominent sci-fi author. And art by Jim Starlin and Al Milgrom. This is pretty early in Jim Starlin's career. I mean, this is probably one of the first stories he ever did. And it's pretty nice. So this is a tale of when Grey Mouser was younger. He was an apprentice to a magician. He was studying the sorcerous arts. And even then, he was kind of the character that he is now. Not entirely good, not entirely bad. That's why he calls himself the Grey Mouser. Steve Ditko would hate this guy because he's like in between. He's not black or white. He's just kind of gray. So I guess Mouser's lord sent him with some money to seek out this person. Oh, it's a king. So he enters into the chamber of the king. And he basically, he says, I wish to offer my service to you, noble king. And they're like, what have you got to offer us? So they set up a little duel to see if Grey Mouser is formidable enough. And even though Grey Mouser is doing pretty good, I guess he doesn't kill this guy or kick his ass enough. And they're like, take the youth away and feed him. And Mouser says, you'll regret this one day. And then he's hanging out with this one dude, Shendai the Deft. Let me double check here, guys. Yeah. And I guess he's a thief, too. And this guy seems to be a master of everything. I love these like 70s Starlin layouts. Things like this. Just well choreographed fight scenes. So all of a sudden these cutthroats come out of nowhere and attack both Mouser and this guy. Just want to check his name again. Shendai. And it looks like they got the best of Mouser. Shendai saves him. And he says, oh, you saved me and my master's gold. And he gives him some advice as he leaves. And Mouser says, wait, I want to give you a reward. And he realizes that Shendai stole his purse of gold. And Mouser kind of resolves, basically says to himself, I guess it was a good lesson, though a costly one. And then we got the letters page, and that's it, unfortunately, for Sword of Sorcery. These are really fun comics. I really wish they continued. Like I said, I was never a big Sword and Sorcery fan as a kid, mainly because most of the main characters were just like these lunk-headed macho dicks. You know, like all those, they're just kind of like gritting their teeth all the time and making stupid vows to to Amra and Crom. They didn't seem like real people. They're beyond, like, even they were 3/4 dimensional. They weren't even 1-dimensional. They were just like whatever. But Fafhrd and the Grey Master are just kind of like cool dudes I'd want to hang out with. They're funny. They're just like some of my friends over the years. But they're involved in all these fun, crazy fantasy adventures. So that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed looking at these. I bet you can get these cheap. And they're fun. And there's some really nice art hiding in these too. So thanks for watching, guys. And hopefully I'll see you next time here at the Herculespetix Academy of Comic Book Studies.